Namaste. Today's video is about one of my favorite topics, and that is books and how to read books effectively. Now, uh, first of all, I would like to start with the latest books that I am reading, and the books that I have been reading lately are, first of all, this very interesting book that is Ikigai. Next is this is also very interesting book, Who Moved My Cheese. And next is this is actually a book about Homi Bhabha and his magnificent obsessions. And next is about this How to Find Peace in a Noisy World by Prem Rawat. So these are the books that I am reading lately. Uh, but today I'll be talking about children's books, that is, books that can be read by children of elementary classes, that is, maybe up to class up to age 12. And when we talk about books, the first question that arises is, how do we read the books effectively, and why should we read books? Now, the question arises that all those people who are in the habit of reading books, are they more intelligent than those people who are not reading books? Why do we always connect wisdom with people who read books? So, and what comes to my mind is that it's not always necessary that people who are in the habit of reading books or who are writing, they are wiser than others. I have seen people who are illiterate, or people who are barely able to read and write. They have so many life skills and so many experience in life. The way they speak, the way they act, the way they behave are much, much better than people who are educated. So, what exactly is that we achieve by reading books? Now, there are lots of things that we achieve by reading books. First of all, the thing that comes to my mind is, see, these books, they were written before writing these books, lot of thought has gone into it, and I should say that it carries the wisdom of thousands of years, and those kind of experiences we cannot have in the short span of our life. So if we read books and we are able to achieve those kind of wisdom from the books, then why not? Then second thing about books is that, of course, we all know that it is one of the most effective ways to learn is to read. When we go to school, the first thing we are introduced is to our textbooks that we have in our school. For example, we have history books, geography books, physics books, English books, Hindi books, and so many other kinds of books. But in addition to that, there are some books that children should be introduced to as early as probably starting from 6 to 7 years, which will really help them in learning life skills, values, and make them a much better person. Now, when we come to the category of books, there are different category of books, and this also we can tell the children. I have a whiteboard here. I have listed the category of books here, and they are fairy tale books, fiction, non-fiction, history, biography, fantasy, classic, mystery, horror, thriller, comedy, etc. In addition to this, there are other kinds of books also. Self-help books are there, books on music, books on art also. But these are the most common books that that are available, and that children should get a choice to read. When it comes to when it comes to developing reading habit in the children, what comes to my mind is that the books should be available to the children. First of all, to select the books and to find out which one they are interested in, the books should be available to them. They should be knowing what are different kinds of books. So in my experience, when I was growing up as a child, we used to have lots of opportunities for reading books, not only in the school, but also I vividly remember my school days when I was studying in Jaipur. Outside our school, there used to be a bookstore, and there we used to get lots of, those days we used to read lots of comics, and I was particularly interested in many kinds of comics. And there in that bookstore, all those books, all those children's books, of course novels were there, many other kinds of books are also there, but all those books, that particular bookstore, they had bound it, made it hardbound, and they had kept it in the bookstore, and it was available to the children on rent. That is, we could pay just 50 paisa those days, and we could get those books for a week. We could keep it for a week, and then after reading those books we could return it. So that was the way I could get to read lots of books. And those books which I read, some of the books I still remember, and I think I should share it with the children, and which are very, very interesting, and it belongs to all the categories. And those books by Indian authors, they are Amar Chitra Kathas, series of Amar Chitra Kathas, very, very interesting series. Then Panchatantra stories, very, very interesting story books, which has animals as the characters, and so many, it teaches us, to how to sort of react to challenging situations, and it definitely helps us to develop lots of life skills. Then, of course, stories by Akbar and Birbal, Tenali Rama stories, Vikram and Vetal stories. And when I talk about Vikram and Vetal stories, I remember I had developed a liking for this Vikram and Vetal stories, because in the end part, those who have read Vikram and Vetal stories, you will definitely agree with me. At the end of the story, the Vetal will ask Vikram, what do you think is the right answer to this question? He will ask a question, and what do you think is the right answer to this question? And when the answer comes out, when the king gives the answer, you get different perspectives to different situations, different life situations, problem solving. There are so many things that changes in your mind when you read these kind of stories. So that was one very, very interesting book that I used to read when I was a child. Then coming to Ruskin Bond's books, some of the books, they are very, very interesting. Then next is Malgudi Days by R.K. Narayan, Swami and his friends. The books, those kind of, those stories, I think now it is available in digital form also. You can, in OTT platform also it is available. So you can of course see those, but the joy and happiness that you get by having that real paperback in your hand, or the book in your hand, and the joy of reading the book is it's not comparable to anything, you know, that you watch on the TV or OTT platform or your mobile phone or anything like that. Then next very important kind of comics that I would like to recommend is the Twinkle comics, and these were also in my childhood days. It was very interesting. It has also got a lots of series of books, and there also there are lots of stories about mythology and some king's stories and stories about animals, and different kinds of stories are there, which were which are so interesting. Now coming to, these are all by Indian authors, and coming to Western books, these kind of books I think I recommend to children of elementary classes. Hansel and Gretel, Tintin series, which was very interesting, Richie Rich series, Archie's comics, of course, and Hardy Boys, and our millennial children, they are, they are very much interested in this Harry Potter series. And next comes the Nancy Drew series, of course, Enid Blyton series. Some of these Enid Blytons, they are part of our curriculum as well. And then Agatha Christie, of course, very interesting. Then Arthur Conan Doyle's novels, and then Ayn Rand. So these are some of the books that I have identified, and it is there with me as well. So I'll just show these books, and then little bit more I will talk about this book. Some of these books, when we were kids, these Tinkle used to come in slightly bigger kind of books. Of course, now they have made this kind of small abridged version, which are very interesting for children. Then this is also Tinkle series. This also used to be like little bit bigger than what it is, what I see here. I think this is a Tinkle Digest, and this book is very this actually a series of short stories which will be very interesting for children. Then coming to, this is of course Bhagavad Gita. Those who are interested, this is a handbook or abridged version of all the shlokas of Bhagavad Gita. Then these books used to be this Archie's comics. These books used to be very interesting. It was very popular when we were growing up as kids. Stories about Betty, Veronica, they very interesting. And nowadays also, if you get to read these books, you are transported into another world altogether. Then coming to R.K. Narayan's book, very interesting book. This is Swami and his friends. This is set in sometimes I think 30s or 40s, and completely it is set in a rural background, and the whole setup of a village, how the behavior, Swami's behavior and everything, it is very interesting book. Then coming to, this is again this Archie series, Betty and Veronica. And then I would also like to show this kind of books. This is Vikram and Betal books. Then fairy tales, of course, all children will be very much interested in reading fairy tales. Then this is books about Akbar and Birbal, and this very interesting Panchatantra Ki Kahaniyan. This is available in English and Hindi both. This whole series I have, I'm not able to show all these books here, written by Vishnu Dutt, and it's very interesting stories which are, I should say, all children should read. And this is part 2, Panchatantra series and tales from in Indian classics. And of course there are lots of folk tales and other kinds of books that we should be shown to the children. It should be available to the children so that they can pick up the books, the kind of books that they are interested in, whichever kind of category, like fiction, non-fiction, history, biography, fantasy, classic, mystery, horror, thriller, whichever is their interest, they can pick up the books from this and they can read. Now when it comes to slightly elder children, I think this book I would Harry Potter's series, I think all children like very much. And then coming to Agatha Christie's books, this is also very much interesting. And this book I would like to recommend to all the children. This has got a series. It is Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and this should be like, because why I recommend this book is that because it is little bit, what should I say, silly, and it makes you laugh. So the experiences of a wimpy kid. So it's a book that will be that should not be given as a starting book to a child, but in between it's kind of a very funny kind of a character in that. So these are the books that I think children of elementary classes should definitely read. And now coming to okay, children read books, then what is the use? Some people with whom I interact, they say, see, we read lots of books, but I am not in the habit of remembering those things. I usually forget what had happened. I forget what is there in my textbook. Then how do you think I will remember what is there in the story or something like that? They tell me that I see what I read in class 8 or 9 or 10, I don't remember now. It is of no use to me. Like I read about, for example, you say that Krebs cycle you read when you were in class, maybe class 11 or something, and about Bernoulli's principle and all those things, very elaborate things I read. But am I using that now? Is it useful to me in any way? No, the answer is no. But at some point in time, what I have seen is that all these things, it will be useful to you in making decisions. All the books, all the conversations that goes on in our mind, all the books that we read, all the experiences that we have, good or bad or whatever, at some point in time it is somewhere registered in our subconscious mind. And then when we face a challenging situation, or when there is a situation wherein we have to take a decision about what is right and wrong, these kind of experiences or these kind of books, they definitely help. At that particular point in time, there's something that sparks in your mind, and then you get an answer to the question that you were thinking you won't be able to solve. So definitely reading books helps, but of course it depends on how discerning you are. What I mean by discerning is that you should be able to recognize what is right, to take the right things from the book, and not to not to take the wrong things. That there are different kinds of books, in you may be, see, all the books that you read may not be so good. Some exceptional books are there, but sometimes you come across books that are not so good. So you should be discerning, to read books, and to the things that are given in the book, you should be able to know how to use it for your advantage. Then in today's life, mostly we see there are lots of distractions for children. The next point about why we should read books is that in today's life, I see children having lots of distractions. They have what children of 70s, 80s, 90s also, we did not have this, but the kids of today, they are having lots of distractions. Most of the kids we find, they are with either mobile phones, tablets, or with their laptops or computers. So the content that is being shown there, most of the children, they are addicted to it, and the values and the life skills, etc., they are taking from those, from those platforms. So from the social media, for example, Instagram or Facebook, or use of even WhatsApp for that matter, it is of course good for people who are in the line of business. The YouTube videos also, for example, the content, there is so much content available. We should be discerning, and we should find out what is right for us and watch that, and not waste our time on unnecessary things. So what I would say is that social media like Instagram, Facebook and all, we should limit our time with the social media, and more time should be spent in, reading books. And how these social media things are affecting our child, that will be seen only later in our life. But now itself we can understand that they are not in certain way they are helpful, but all the content that is being shown is not so good for our children. Now next thing that comes to my mind is this about books, why we should read books, is that today's generation, mostly what I see is they are to develop a, what should I say, they're to develop a correct mental state. That is, they are constantly being on the social platform. They're constantly on a high, like they want to see something, they want to see a movie, they are able to see, they want to see comedy, they are able to see. So in their mind what they think is that that is a reality, but that is not exactly the reality of life. There are so many things that kids will experience when they grow up. There will be failures as well, there will be problems in life, there will be sorrow in life. So all these things, how the child takes it, the child should be able to take it in a positive manner and move forward in his life, in his or her life. Books are really of great help. And of course entertainment definitely. And by reading books you develop new vocabulary, knowledge, and also the way your narrative itself changes, because you're constantly reading those kinds of books. When you speak, when you talk, when you think, and when you act, your actions, your thoughts, your behavior, everything will be will you see a great change in the behavior, in the narrative. The way you speak also will be different. So that is in my experience, that is what is the advantage of books. And I would say that some of these books are, magic pill. And the last thing I would like to say about the advantage of books is they are our best friends. You may have a very, very close friend, and suddenly due to some reason you're not having the friends, suddenly becomes unfriends you, or they are no longer your friends. But the books will never do that. So if you have a book, and if you have a good book in your hand, you will always have a good friend with you. So these are all the advantages of reading books. I hope this video will be useful to all the parents, all the teachers, and all the children out there. Happy reading, children. Namaste.